All right, welcome into Off the Radar. Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45, we take a look at a variety of stories across sports. Get the fellas to give me their thoughts on some things that, in some cases, like my first story I'm going to mention, I know that we would definitely be talking about at some point and maybe still talk about some more later on. And in other cases, I know that we're definitely not going to mention probably some notes. So it's kind of a mixture of those types of things. But how about we start off with Phil Mickelson? I know you guys have been chomping at the bit to discuss this. He put out a long statement today, about 6 paragraphs, discussing his comments last week about the Saudi tournament. He was talking with Alan Shipnuck. And what's very interesting is Phil put out this 6-paragraph explanation for where he was coming from, and it got into like the struggles he's been through in life, and it went kind of all over the place, quite frankly. His incredible partners and the changes the PGA needs to make, and he was misquoted. And the first part that really stuck out to me, because I just happened to see the first response, which was from Alan Shipnuck, the interviewer. So I saw Phil's statement, and then I saw that reply before I read the entire statement. And in the very first paragraph, Phil says, "Although it doesn't look this way now given my recent comments, my actions throughout this process have always been with the best interest of golf, my peers, sponsors, and fans. There is the problem of off-record comments being shared out of context and without my consent, but the bigger issue is that I used words I sincerely regret that do not reflect my true feelings or intentions. It was reckless, I offended people, and I am deeply sorry for my choice of words. I'm beyond disappointed and will make every effort to self-reflect and learn from this." Alan Shipnuck said, no, it was not off the record, and I'll have more so there you go.
I've got it here, Craig.
Okay,
I've
great.
actually got a couple of different things.
From Shipnuck?
Yeah, from Shipnuck about our boy Fig Jam.
Hey, by the way, if you go to the second part of that statement, Armstrong, I just sent you the link to both of those images. Maybe if we get to the second part of the statement, if we do, you'll have that as well. Paul?
Alan Shipnuck did a mailbag on his website today, and thefirepitcollective.com. Have you heard from Phil? He sent me a text this morning after the excerpt dropped. He was less than thrilled. Just as in the statement he released on Tuesday afternoon, Mickelson made a half-hearted attempt at revisionist history, trying to say ours had been a private conversation, but I shut that down real quick. He knew I was working on a book about him and asked to speak, saying he wanted to discuss media rights and his grievances with the tour, both of which inevitably led back to Saudi Arabia. If the subject of a biography phones the author, the content of that conversation is always going to inform the book, unless it is expressly agreed otherwise. Not once in our text or when we got on the phone did Mickelson request to go off the record. I never consented to it. If he had asked, I would have pushed back hard. Yeah, here's another thing. By the way, KPMG US, Phil Mickelson's longtime sponsor, and Phil have mutually agreed to part ways.
Well, okay. And that might not be. I mentioned that when we mentioned his comments and quote about Saudi Arabia and some of what they said. Craig?
Yeah, he, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's too long, but he did say, "I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and many have been shared with the public. My intent was never to hurt anyone, and I'm so sorry to the people I have negatively impacted. This has always been about supporting the players in the game, and I appreciate all the people who have given me the benefit of the doubt." It goes on and on. He talks about his fans some more and all that kind of jazz, but, you remember his comments last week, right? He's like, yeah, they kill people, and there's genocide and everything, but we got to teach the PGA a lesson. Like, that was the basic gist of his statement last week. And I was saying this during the segment, and I was just shaking my head at, just the audacity. I don't know. That struck a wrong chord with me, and I wasn't, upset and cancel feeling all that, but I was just like, does he not realize, how bad that comes across, what horrible. He said? Now he's backtracking, and not surprising, or not really backtracking.
A current veteran PGA Tour player who I mentioned a couple of things he told me yesterday. When I showed him a piece of that Mickelson statement and then Brandel Chambly blasting Mickelson, all he said back to me was, "Called it." He said that. I mentioned that yesterday, and he said, "I called it." So there we go.
Yeah, so Phil Mickelson is sorry for his comments, deeply sorry for reckless words about the Saudi League, and he's claiming that they were off the record. But Alan Shipnuck, the author of that Phil Mickelson book, saying no and debunking that. So, we'll see. Where does the Super League go from here, guys? If you've got top players who you were suspecting might be jumping over that are no longer jumping over. You've got Phil now backpedaling a little bit on his statement. Where does this thing go? Is this the soccer super league all over again, or is this thing going to get off the ground and we're going to see some big time players involved with it?
No, I think this feels like the soccer super league all over again. And, they might be able to do a couple events going over there, but I don't think that they're going to get. And the other thing is that the youngest guy I think they had initially committed or had said he was going over there was Adam Scott, who's 41.
Yeah, it was going to be older, vet who are kind of, I saw how somebody put it where not old enough for the senior tour, but not young enough to still be at the top of the heap in the regular PGA Tour. It would kind of be the crowd that would generate.
Adam Scott, I think, has won 2 Masters championships. He's an incredibly gifted golfer, very well liked and respected, but he's not going to draw flies. I mean, with what they need to be able to do. So if they didn't get Dustin Johnson or Justin Thomas or John Rahm or Mickelson or whoever else, along with the others, this thing went off the tracks pretty quickly because it looked like there was a little bit of traction, then poof, it just like a bad train wreck. That kind of money, they can find a way to continue. It'll be I think this is the second time that Greg Norman has tried to do things like this. And both times, an unbelievable, my favorite golfer forever until Tiger showed up. It doesn't look like it's going to end very well.
Yeah, and the one other part about that, and we'll move on to another story, was at the very end of the statement, he does mention taking some time away. So he said he's going to take some time away. He's felt pressure and stress slowly affecting him at a deeper level. I know I've not been my best and desperately need some time away to prioritize the ones I love most and work on being the man I want to be. So that was Phil.
Well, he just did win a major. But so he's been pretty darn good on the golf course the last year. But I do think, and part of this is, Phil has never been booed before. He's a fan favorite. He winks and gun. Everybody who yells, "Hey, Phil," when he's walking down the fairway. I've seen it a couple times at different events that I attended. He's never been booed before. And what was going to happen when he teed off at that first event after this? Dude was going to get booed a little bit. And I don't think he wants to deal with that.
I think I could tell that at the British Open many years ago, good friend, great friend Eric and his father-in-law, the late Burley Lamb, they were at the British Open. And 2 players walked in. 5 players were there. It was like a pub. So guys were having beers or whatever they were having, appetizers, whatever. And Tiger walked in. And it wasn't like everyone got up and, they were cordial. He was cordial. It was not like he was, you hear about him being a little aloof. It was not like that at all. Phil walked in and Eric asked a PGA Tour player, John Rollins at the time, about it. And John Rollins said, listen, he's not that liked. That there's a Teflon about him that fans see, but the players see inside the clubhouse. And this is kind of what the tournament PGA Pro said as well about him yesterday when I asked him about those quotes from last week.
Well, and I think that's very clear, and just hearing some of the other golfers make little comments over the last week or so since he made his comments, like they've kind of like, oh, that figures, or, whatever. So, yeah, anyways, that's Phil Mickelson on his comments from last week and apologizing sort of for those, but also saying he's going to take some time away. The Olympics are over. If you weren't watching them to begin with, you may not have noticed, but I did see some different parts over the last couple of weeks, and the ratings are in, and they were quite low. Lowest Olympic ratings in quite some time. The 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing, smallest primetime audience since NBC Universal started broadcasting the games, according to figures released by NBC. NBC said nightly coverage of the Beijing Games attracted 11.4 million primetime viewers, a 42% drop from 2018 in Pyeongchang, which had an average of 19.8 million viewers. Closing ceremony drew under 7 million primetime viewers, which I can't imagine that's a number that they were really hoping for, under 7 million people.
Yep.
Streaming service, however, Peacock, got its best 18-day period of usage during the games, attracted an average audience of 516 users in primetime. Like, I guess that's better news, but like that's still not a very great number to really be all that excited about. Like, oh, wait for the streaming numbers to come in. It's 500,000 people. Like that's not what you were looking for, I don't think. But
well, and that's surprising given that they're where you can go watch old episodes of like Yellowstone and The Office. I mean, that's where you can watch The Office and Parks and Rec now. So I bet you that probably barely beats that.
Yeah, and I'm looking and it's not specified. Yeah, it's just saying Peacock, so I don't think that's specifying the Olympics. So you're right. It might even be like half of a million. Yeah.
Given how many people love to watch The Office as their kind of go-to relaxing show, like two people in this room, as a matter of fact, I know like to do that. The Peacock is the only place you can do that streaming now. So
yeah. Yep. Well, they had over 2,800 hours of coverage. There were a bunch of different storylines, but obviously some of the bigger storylines were all behind the scenes and worldwide and continue to be. An average of 1.4 million primetime viewers for USA Network. And, of course, they were happy about, the work done and all of that, and they put a positive spin on it as far as that goes. But, yeah, a 42% drop from the Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang. And on top of that, the lowest average since NBC took over as the exclusive broadcast network since the Summer Games in '88 and the Winter Games in '02. That's the kind of territory they're dipping into with this drop. So there was your Winter Olympics finale. And in terms of the medal count, the final medal count, Norway, 37 overall medals. That was the best by 10 over Germany, who finished with 27 medals. Norway also had the most golds with 16. China and the U.S. finishing wait a second, that's not right. That was wrong. Okay, Norway finishing first with 37. That's why it had the column switched up. The country that's threatening World War III right now finished second with 32. Germany, 27. Canada, 26. U.S., 25. So good enough for fifth. They had 8 golds, 10 silvers, and 7 bronze.
I don't have the history, but I know that there was once or twice when maybe the United States had the most overall medals. The Winter Olympics is more the rarity because we listed the all-time leaders. Mm-hmm. But that's probably about on average, even with some of the catastrophes of the downhill skier. But that's about what they get. Yeah,
I don't know what the average is. I mean, a top 5 finish, I'll take that. It's better than like being in the middle of the pack. I don't recall either what it typically is, but I wasn't expecting them to go and beat Austria and Canada and Norway and a lot of them and many of these sports. Not really. We're more of a summer, I think, type of country.
If we ever lose the medal count in the Summer Olympics,
that's where you get a little concerned.
I get really miffed.
Yeah. All right, baseball news. Nothing on the season because that's not happening anytime soon. There's nothing going on there.
They're meeting this week. So.
Oh, great. They've been doing that for weeks and nothing's come of it. But an interesting jersey retirement announcement. The New York Yankees have announced they are retiring Paul O'Neill's number 21 jersey and will do so on during a ceremony on August the 21st. That is, of course, keeping in mind that baseball's playing in August, which we don't know for sure if that's going to happen, but let's assume that they are back together at that point. Then on August the 21st, Paul O'Neill will become the 23rd player in Yankees history to have his number retired. The most recent was Derek Jeter, who had his number 2 retired back in 2017. And they've got a long list of, they by far have the most retired jerseys. The whole top 10's taken at this point, including 2 number 8s. Like a lot of the 20s are taken, and there's still some numbers available. But yeah, 27 numbers now retired, 23 numbers now retired, and Paul O'Neill's number 21 will no longer be worn.
What?
And so, like, this led to, I saw some Twitter debate about this. Paul O'Neill, great Yankee, totally beloved by that fan base, really good player.
He's on the TV network now.
Jersey retired?
No. Look,
sorry.
Look, part of this is I think people are nostalgic, but he was on a great episode of Seinfeld where he
who gives 2 blanks?
But no, I'm telling you how this feeds into it. Is that he's on the TV network. He's one of the Yankees who was on Seinfeld. So people love him. So people love him for all this other stuff. But like when you look at Paul O'Neill is going to have a monument next to Babe Ruth.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I look.
That's passion right there. Just pure like watermelon right there. When you were mentioning that, I was like, is this No, he's not going to have his jersey.
Yep, number
With all due
21.
respect, he was a clutch player, hell of a player, played with the Reds a lot too, but that surprises me. Okay.
But Bernie Williams doesn't have a monument. He was a better player at that same time than Paul O'Neill. So I don't know. I mean,
he played 17 years, played about half the career in each city.
Yep.
Finished with
he was a big-time Red.
Hits. Yeah.
Big-time Cincinnati Red. And I know he's beloved, and there's been a lot of people I've seen that have drummed up like his final game and the big chant that was going for him when they were playing the Diamondbacks, and you knew that it was going to be his last hurrah. And that was a great moment, and he was very well beloved. But Jersey retired, I don't know about that, but that's going to be coming a little bit later on. I mentioned the Olympics a moment ago, and I just wanted to make mention that this is the anniversary of the Miracle on Ice. Now, I was not alive when the Miracle on Ice occurred. I've seen the movie, I've seen plenty of clips and all of that jazz, but your memories, I thought this would be a nice time to reflect on y'all's experience or what you remember from the 1980 Miracle on Ice as they celebrate another anniversary this year, February 22nd, 1980, when that went down U.S. over Russia.
I was on the campus of Stephen F. Austin. I was a junior, and I was in my dorm room, which was kind of the units. It was kind of one of those where you had suite mates, but it was a one-story dorm. I'm watching. Back then, they didn't play that live, and all of a sudden, SportsCenter had only been maybe a year or two, and I saw the report about the United States had beaten Russia, and I lost my mind that happened.
Soviet Union.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the miracle. Absolutely the miracle of all upsets of all time, and could not wait to watch it later on that evening, and that was a spectacular moment.
Soviet Union won.
And
Soviet Union won.
What a lot of people thought about.
He's working on number 2 right now.
What a lot of people thought about is that game was the semifinal game. That was not for the gold medal. They had to win another one, but no one cared at that time.
Yeah.
Mike Eruzione, Craig was the goaltender. Man, that was an incredible deal.
Yeah, so that today is the anniversary of the Miracle on Ice, and very fitting with what all's going on right now. 42 years. Does that feel a little weird to hear that?
Yeah,
42 years since the Miracle on Ice.
Well, yeah, because it means I'll be 42 in a couple months.
Oh, yeah, that line's right up. Yes, so there you go.
Yep.
That's a nice reminder there.
Yeah, every year I hear that the Miracle on Ice has an anniversary, I'm like...
Yeah. Just a couple more notes. Matt Rule, when he was at Baylor, I remember you talking to him a couple times, and he thought that it would be a good idea if there was some type of a way for teams to be able to practice against one another and do so in the spring or in the summer. Well, the MAC is asking the NCAA to consider a proposal that will allow FBS teams to hold NFL-style joint practices starting in 2022. It would be a part of their regular training camp schedule and one of 18 allowable practices. There'd be a time limit, no more than 75 minutes. But the proposal reads, student athletes in many sports other than football have an opportunity to test themselves, yada, yada, yada. A joint practice with another institution during the preseason would allow football student athletes an opportunity to prepare for the upcoming season. So, now an NCAA proposal, NFL-style joint practices during fall camp between FBS schools that will be voted on in April.
I have asked this question for years. I mean, years and years and years. I remember one time asking Art Browse this question. Why do you not have scrimmages with other schools, whether it's in the spring or in August or whenever? And I know that there was a concern about injuries and whatever. You can do that right, and you're going to have injuries. It could be a practice, could be a walkthrough. But I've always wondered why college football programs did not. Basketball teams have these so-called secret scrimmages. Mm-hmm. I don't know why football teams, if you're not going to play a team, why you wouldn't want to do that as well.
Why can't that be secret too? I mean, you know.
Yeah, like hey, Duke and Baylor just had a tussle, in their whatever. Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. High school scrimmage.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they don't. I guess joint style practice is a little different.
College football is this one unique sport that when everyone else, and this might be college athletics in general, but when everybody else does a thing a certain way, college football will say they'll never work here, and they'll say, and you go, why? Well, reasons.
They're always the most stubborn.
It's too much to get into right now.
Yep.
Your brain couldn't handle it.
Final thing for you, The Rock is the co-owner of the XFL. This came out yesterday, but They are teaming up with the NFL, but not in the way that you think that they are. They are not set to become the new minor league. It's nothing along those lines just yet, but the XFL, who is still in the process of even getting back to playing games, which is set to start next year, but they are in that process right now. They had to get it out of bankruptcy. Rock took it over with business partners. Well, they have struck a deal with the NFL where the XFL will test new initiatives like on-field technology and rules changes, proposed rules changes, and will even become sort of a trial run for new officials that could eventually join the NFL. And that will be kind of the NFL's testing ground now to try out officials, to try out on-field tech, to try out rules changes. They're going to do that through the XFL and see how it goes. And The Rock made it very clear in his statement, this is not a partnership as though the XFL is the new minor league. It's not that. It's just they are partnering on this specifically. Could it expand to some other things eventually? Perhaps, but this is the basic gist of it. So don't go and take it and say, oh, well, they're now NFL 2.0. And it's not like that. But it is interesting that they are going to work together a little bit.
Well, they will make it then. If the NFL is going to be a supportive part of this, then there's a much better chance they will make it. Daryl Johnston, of course, has joined us on the new, what is it, the USFL, and good people around that.
I'd like to see the
draft coming up.
I'd like to see the XFL and the USFL play a championship game.
Oh, like cross league, like the SEC Big 12 Challenge kind of deal. So yeah, I mean that's at least a good sign for them. XFL again, a little over a year away, but I think with The Rock and his ex-wife Danny Garcia, who's one of his business partners, those two do nothing but big money deals. And I'm sure if anybody could fix it, it wouldn't be Vince McMahon or anybody else who's owned leagues before. The Rock could fix it. Like, if anybody's going to do it, it would be The Rock. So we'll see how it goes. But they are at least getting a little bit more done NFL-wise than Vince McMahon did in his couple years.
USFL draft, in fact, is going on, I believe, right now.
I think it's tonight.
Tonight as well. Craig, great stuff. A lot of different on the chat room. From the chat room, Rich Boone. As someone who loves to ski, I did not watch any of the Olympic Games. Not deliberately, just honestly, I don't have the interest. Mike Cole. I remember those days. There was no games during the week on TV, and there was no cable. I was bringing up the fact that I used to watch games on a battery-operated, black and white, transistor TV with the ears and all that. And then also, there's a couple of people just saying they did not watch the Olympic Games.
I watched more with my family members this past weekend than I watched in the previous 2 weeks that it was on. There was one night I watched a little bit of snowboarding just on my own and maybe a couple things here and there, but for the most part, it was background, if it was even that for me. And I think it's just kind of everything all together that makes me feel that way.
It was so awkward. The Super Bowl ends, dramatic ending, and 6 minutes later, all of a sudden, I saw something with the NBC Olympic Games. I flipped my TV off. I went to NFL Network to see more of the postgame.
And the TV ratings-wise, that didn't even help them. The Super Bowl lead-in, if you really think about it.
From the biggest television event every year. All right, when we come back, Houston Texans head coach and